I always believed that coming home early from a trip was the kind of surprise families dream about. You know the kind. Your wife opens the door with that warm, relieved smile. Your kids run toward you. Someone shouts you're home already. And the whole house fills with laughter that makes the walls feel alive. But life has a way of ripping up your expectations and handing you something else entirely. My return home began with nothing more dramatic than a flight cancellation. I was supposed to be in Dubai for a corporate conference, stuck in meetings for another 4 days. But a sandstorm grounded all outgoing flights, and just like that, every agenda item and scheduled speech evaporated. Most of my colleagues scrambled to find hotels or alternate flights, but for me, it felt like a blessing in disguise. My mind immediately drifted to my wife, Elena. I imagined her surprise, the way her eyes would light up when she saw me standing in the doorway with that goofy grin I always wore when I wanted to make her smile. So I called for a taxi, grabbed my luggage, and started the long journey back home. I kept thinking to myself, this will be good, she'll love this, maybe we'll even go out for dinner, maybe the house won't feel so cold tonight. But when the taxi finally pulled up in front of the house, something hit me, something small, subtle, but wrong. The porch light wasn't on. Elena always turned it on before sunset. It was her habit, almost ritualistic. She said it made the home feel welcoming, like it's waiting for someone. But the house wasn't waiting for me. It looked indifferent. Not dark, not abandoned, just strangely unaware of my return. I stepped out of the taxi, paid the driver, and rolled my suitcase toward the front door. That's when I heard it, music, loud enough that the bass vibrated faintly through the porch tiles. People talking, clinking glasses, laughter. A party. In my house. My chest tightened with a surge of confusion. My son, Daniel, was 19, old enough to know better, old enough to ask permission, and absolutely old enough to text me if he planned to invite half the neighborhood into my living room. But that wasn't even the first sign of trouble. As I got closer to the door, something made me freeze. Someone was crawling. On the ground. An older woman, frail, trembling, her hands scraping against the tiles as she struggled to move. Her hair was silver, her clothes wrinkled, and she looked like she had been suffering alone for days. She kept trying to reach the walker that stood abandoned a few feet away from her, as if someone had pushed it aside. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Who was she? Why was she outside? Why was she on the ground? Then I saw her face. It was Elena, my wife. I dropped my suitcase instantly and rushed toward her so fast my shoes nearly slipped on the tiles. "Elena," I shouted, my voice cracking. "What happened? Why are you out here?" She looked up at me with eyes so dry and sunken it made my stomach twist. She lifted a shaky hand as if trying to touch my face, but her arm dropped halfway, too weak to complete the movement. You came home," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank God." Her lips were cracked, white at the edges. There was no moisture in her voice. Her skin looked dehydrated, almost fragile. "Elena," I said again, dropping to my knees beside her. "What happened? Why are you outside? Where is your walker? Why are you on the floor?" She swallowed hard, once painfully, as if even that small movement burned her throat. I tried to call out. Nobody heard me. Her breathing was thin, shallow. "I've been waiting." I glanced toward the open window. And that's when my confusion turned into something darker, heavier, something that blazed in my chest like ignited gasoline. Inside the house, Daniel and some of his friends were standing around with drinks in their hands, laughing, talking, enjoying themselves like they didn't have a care in the world. They didn't notice me outside. They didn't notice Elena on the ground. They didn't notice anything. They were partying while my wife, his mother, was crawling on the porch, dehydrated, alone, unable to stand. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. My hands shook as I helped Elena sit up. "We need to get you inside," I said, unable to hide the panic creeping into my voice. Lean on me. I've got you. Her body was so weak she felt almost weightless in my arms. She clutched my sleeve with trembling fingers. Water, she murmured. Please, water. My throat tightened so hard it felt like I couldn't breathe. How long had she been like this? Hours, a day, more. I eased her into a sitting position against the wall and quickly rushed inside. The door was wide open, and yet none of them bothered to check outside. My son's back was toward me. He was saying something to a group of people who were laughing. They didn't even look my way when I entered. Not until I grabbed a glass, filled it with ice-cold water and rushed back outside. I held it to Alina's lips and helped her drink slowly, carefully. She coughed at first, the kind of desperate cough that tore at your heart. But then she drank deeply, greedily, the life slowly returning to her eyes. What happened? I whispered once she paused to breathe. Why didn't Daniel help you? He's right inside. He should have been here. Alina, how long were you alone like this? Her eyes glistened with something between shame and pain. He didn't know, she said weakly. I didn't believe that. I didn't believe it for a second. How could he not know? I asked, trying not to raise my voice. He's here. He's been here the whole time. Why didn't he check on you? She closed her eyes for a moment, her expression twisting. He hasn't spoken to me since you left. He's been angry. I asked him to help with something earlier, but he said he was busy. Then I stumbled, I fell, and I couldn't get up. My pulse hammered in my temples. He left you outside. My voice was shaking now, not from fear but from anger. I called his name, she whispered. I tried to shout, but the music he didn't hear. She opened her eyes again and looked at me with a hollow kind of sadness. I think he didn't care. For a moment, the world around me went silent. No music. No laughter. No wind. Just the sharp sting of her words. I helped her stand, my arm firmly around her waist, and brought her into the house. The moment we entered, the air shifted. A few of Daniel's friends glanced our way, their smiles fading into confusion. Daniel turned around slowly, and his eyes widened when he saw me. Dad, he said, almost choking on the word. You're home, but your flight was canceled, I said sharply. And apparently that was the only reason I'm standing here right now. Otherwise, God knows how much worse this could have gotten. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, one of the girls beside him nudged his arm. Daniel, your mom, she looks awful. Get out, I said, my voice low but ice cold. The room went quiet instantly. But Dad, I said, get out, all of you. There was something in my tone, something fierce and boiling, that made every person in that room scramble for their things and head for the door without argument. Shoes slapped against the tile floor, jackets rustled, whispers filled the air. In less than a minute, the house that had been full of laughter and music became silent. Completely silent. Daniel was the last one standing there, his face pale. Dad, I didn't know, he stammered. I didn't hear her, she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything because she couldn't, I snapped. She was outside on the ground, dehydrated, weak, struggling to breathe, and you were partying. He looked down, guilt flooding his face, but guilt wasn't nearly enough. You didn't even check on her, I said. Not once. Alina has never gone this long without water. She has never been this weak. I leave for a few days and this is what you do. Daniel swallowed hard, his jaw trembling. I thought she was fine. She was in her room most of the time. I just wanted to have fun. Everyone been stressed lately. She nearly died, I said. Does that sound like fun to you? Alina tugged on my sleeve weakly. Marcus, don't, please. But I wasn't finished. We'll talk later, I said to Daniel. Right now, I need to take care of your mother. His eyes filled with shame. I'm sorry. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not after what I saw. I helped Alina to the sofa, fetched more water, then checked her temperature, cold skin, weak pulse, clear signs of dehydration. I wrapped a blanket around her, helped her sip more water, and stayed by her side until her breathing steadied. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I didn't want you to worry," she whispered. "I thought maybe he would help eventually." I closed my eyes for a moment, fighting the ache in my chest. "Alina, you should never suffer alone, not like this, not ever." She nodded weakly. "Thank you for coming back early," she whispered. "I needed you." Her words carved a deep, painful mark inside me. I pulled her closer, resting my cheek against her hair. "I'm here," I whispered, "and I'm not going anywhere." But inside me, a storm was forming. Because what happened today wasn't just an accident. It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just a moment of recklessness from a teenager. This was something deeper. Something broken. And I was going to get to the bottom of it, no matter how painful it became. Daniel disappeared into his room after the party-goers left, closing the door quietly like he was afraid to breathe too loudly. I didn't go after him. Not yet. Not with the heat still burning under my skin and the sight of Alina on her hands and knees carved into my memory like a wound. I sat beside her on the sofa, listening to her breathing slowly stabilize. She leaned against me, exhausted, but she kept holding onto the sleeve of my jacket, like she feared that if she let go, I might vanish again. I brushed a hand through her silver hair, feeling the dryness in it, the lack of moisture even in her skin. How long had she been like this? How many hours had she waited for someone to come, for him to come? "Alina," I said softly, "why didn't you call me?" She shifted slightly, her voice small. "Your phone was off. You were on the plane when I tried." I remembered. We were taking off when I turned it off. With the delays and chaos, I never turned it back on until I landed. My chest tightened. "I should have checked," I whispered. She shook her head weakly. "You had no way of knowing." But I still felt responsible. Maybe that's what love does. It makes you blame yourself even when you shouldn't. For several minutes we sat in silence, her head resting lightly on my chest. I could feel her heartbeat, slow, delicate, a rhythm weakened by neglect. Finally she whispered, "I didn't want to disturb him. He looked busy all day." Busy. That word hit me harder than anything else. Busy doing what? Busy planning a party. Busy blasting music so loud he couldn't hear his own mother calling for help. I swallowed the anger that tried to rise again and focused on Alina instead. "What happened?" I asked quietly. "From the moment I left, tell me everything." She hesitated, as if choosing which pieces of the truth to share. She had always been gentle, too gentle sometimes, too forgiving, even when she shouldn't be. "I wasn't feeling well yesterday," she finally said. "A headache, fatigue. I assumed it was just a bad day. I stayed in bed mostly. Daniel came to ask if he could go out with friends. I told him yes." My jaw tightened. "You didn't tell him you were unwell." She smiled weakly. "I didn't want to burden him." "Alina, you're his mother. Asking for help isn't a burden." "I know," she whispered. "But I remember how we used to be at his age. We didn't want responsibilities. We just wanted to enjoy life. I didn't want to sound needy." She said it with a softness that made my heart ache. She wasn't needy, she was vulnerable. There's a difference. She took a small breath. "I fell in the evening, just slipped while standing up. It wasn't severe at first, but I couldn't get up. I called for him, but the music was loud. His friends kept coming and going. He thought I was asleep." She closed her eyes, tears slipping out from under her lashes. "I kept hoping he would check on me, just once." Just once. Two simple words that revealed everything. I felt a burn behind my eyes, anger, guilt, helplessness, all mixing into something heavy and suffocating. Alina was soft-spoken, patient, forgiving. She always believed the best in people, especially in Daniel. And he had taken that for granted. When she finished drinking the third glass of water, she exhaled shakily and leaned back against the pillows. Her body looked fragile in a way that terrified me. She touched my hand. "Marcus, don't be too harsh on him." I didn't answer, not because I disagreed, because I knew the version of Daniel she wanted me to see didn't match the version I saw tonight. I waited until she was asleep before I stood up slowly, brushing a kiss on her forehead. Then I took a deep breath and walked down the hallway. Daniel's door was closed. For the first time in years, I didn't knock. I opened the door quietly and stepped in. Daniel was sitting on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. He looked up when he heard the door open. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from guilt and the weight of what he knew he'd done. "Dad," he murmured, "I'm sorry." "Sorry," I repeated, leaning against the wall. "Daniel, do you even understand what happened today, truly?" He opened his mouth, closed it again, then stared at his hands. I didn't hear her. I swear I didn't. The music was loud, and people were here. I thought she was resting. She always rests in the afternoon. "She wasn't resting," I said sharply. "She was weak. She fell. She called for you. She needed you." He clenched his jaw, tears finally gathering in his eyes. "I didn't know." "You didn't check, not once." My voice trembled with restrained fury. "Daniel, this isn't about negligence. It's about priorities. You chose your party over your mother." He ran his hands through his hair. "I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to feel normal. All my friends have fun. They go out, they party, they don't worry about stuff at home. And you're gone so often for work and Mom always says she's fine, so you assumed she'd always be fine." He fell silent. "That's not how life works," I said. "People aren't permanent fixtures in your life. They can be strong for years and then fragile in an instant. Your mother needed you today and you weren't there." "I know," he whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm not a bad person." I sighed and sat across from him. "I don't think you're a bad person, but today you made terrible choices, and you need to understand the consequences." He swallowed. "Is she going to be okay?" "She will," I said, "because I came home early because I found her, but if I hadn't." His face paled. I let the silence sink in. He looked at me, voice trembling. "Dad, why didn't she tell me she was feeling sick? Why didn't she ask me for help?" "She did," I replied quietly. "You ignored her." His lips parted as the truth hit him. I thought she was just asking me to clean something, or move something. I told her later I didn't know." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't listen, you didn't look, you didn't care enough to check." He shut his eyes tightly. A tear fell onto his hand. "I messed up, I know I did, I don't know how to fix it." "Start by taking responsibility," I said. "Not excuses, not deflection, responsibility." He nodded slowly. "Tomorrow," I added, "I want you to apologize sincerely, and not just with words. Your actions need to show it." He wiped his cheeks and whispered, "I will." I stood up. "Good, because this family can't survive if we don't start treating each other like a family." Just as I reached the door, he spoke again. "Dad." I stopped. "Are you mad at me?" I turned slightly. "I'm disappointed and I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "That you're turning into someone who doesn't see the people who love him." He stared at me like the words pierced straight through him. I left him with that and stepped back into the hallway. When I returned to the living room, Alina was awake again, barely. She looked at me with weary eyes. "Did you talk to him?" "Yes." "Was it bad?" "It needed to be honest," I said. She nodded faintly. I helped her drink another half glass of water and made sure she was as comfortable as possible. She kept trying to sit up straighter, trying to pretend she was okay, but her body was still recovering. "You should rest," I whispered. Stay with me. I'm not going anywhere. I sat beside her, holding her hand while she drifted between consciousness and sleep. Every now and then her fingers squeezed mine, an instinct, a fear, a need for reassurance. Hours passed. The house was quiet now, eerily so, and that stillness gave me time to think about the last few months, the shifts in Daniel's behavior, the changes in his attitude. He had been distant, irritated, easily frustrated. I thought it was normal teenage rebellion, stress from college applications, social pressure, all the usual things. But tonight showed me something deeper, something I had been too absorbed in work to see. Maybe the distance wasn't just teenage rebellion. Maybe it was something we caused too. We raised him. We shaped his priorities. We set the example. Had I been around enough? Had I taught him enough? Had I been too focused on earning money instead of building character? As those questions simmered in my mind, I dozed off for a few minutes until I felt movement. Alina shifted and whispered, "Marcus." I opened my eyes immediately. "I'm here. What do you need?" Her voice trembled. "Promise me something." "Anything. Don't hate him." I felt a heaviness in my chest. "Alina. Please, he's young, he's careless, but he's not heartless, he's lost. And maybe we missed the signs." I held her hand tighter. "I don't hate him." She gave me a tired smile. "Good, because he needs you." I sighed softly. "You need me too." "I always have," she whispered. We stayed like that for a while until she finally fell asleep. I gently tucked the blanket around her and kissed her forehead. Then I stood up quietly and walked toward the kitchen, because something was bothering me. Something she said earlier. She had been without water for days. Not hours. Days. But Daniel said he thought she was fine, that she was resting, that she always kept to herself when tired. None of that explained the complete lack of water intake. Alina always kept bottles beside her bed. If she fell yesterday, she should have still had water from the day before. Unless she hadn't had access to it. I opened the fridge. Empty. No water bottles. I checked the pantry. Only snacks and dry goods. I frowned. Then I checked the countertop, the place where Alina always kept a jug of water. It wasn't there. A cold feeling crept up my spine. Had she been too weak to refill it? Had she asked Daniel and he refused? Had she tried and fallen? I started retracing the house, checking everything, every water source. Bathroom sink. Dry. Kitchen sink. Barely a drip. Then something dawned on me. I walked to the laundry area. The main water valve. It was turned halfway off. Why? I crouched down and touched it. The metal was rough, cold. Someone had shut it halfway. My heart started pounding harder. Why, I whispered to myself, why would the water be turned off? Then a voice spoke behind me. "Dad." I turned around. Daniel stood there, pale and nervous, chewing the inside of his cheek. "Why is the water off?" I asked plainly. He swallowed hard. I turned it off yesterday." My chest felt tight. "Why?" He hesitated, then whispered, "The bill came 2 days ago. We were behind. I didn't want the pipes to burst or something. I thought turning it off halfway would conserve things until you got back." "That's not how water bills work," I said quietly. "I didn't know," he snapped, then caught himself. "I mean, I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't think Mom would need it so much. I thought she'd be okay for a day." He looked down. I thought she had bottles. I let the silence stretch between us, thick and unbearable. "Daniel," I said slowly, "your mother was dehydrated severely because she couldn't stand, because she had no water. Because you turned it off." He winced. "I didn't mean to hurt her." That doesn't change the fact that you did. He stepped closer, panic in his voice. Dad, please tell me she's going to be okay. Tell me this isn't my fault. I looked at him, and in his eyes I saw something raw, frightened, desperate. Guilt. Real guilt. But guilt wasn't enough. Not anymore. I took a slow breath. She'll recover. But yes, Daniel, this was your fault, but it doesn't have to define you. What matters is what you do next. He wiped his face with his sleeve, his voice breaking. What do I do next? I stared at him for a long moment. We fix this, I said, as a family starting tomorrow. But tomorrow would bring truths none of us were prepared for. The morning sunlight crept into the house slowly, brushing the walls with a pale glow that felt almost too gentle compared to the heaviness that hung in every room. I hadn't slept more than an hour, maybe less. Every time I closed my eyes, visions of Alina crawling across the floor replayed in my mind, her hands trembling, her breath thin, her voice barely a whisper. When I walked into the living room, she was awake, sitting up slightly, her back supported by pillows. She looked fragile but stronger than last night, her lips no longer cracked, her skin holding a bit more color. "Good morning," she said softly, as if she were the one trying not to disturb me. I sat beside her. "How do you feel?" "Like someone drained my energy with a straw," she joked weakly, then exhaled. "But better." I gave her a small smile, though worry still pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. "Are you hungry?" I asked. She nodded, a little, but water first. I handed her the glass I had prepared earlier. She sipped it slowly, savoring each drink as if her body was relearning how to accept the simplest form of life. When she finished, she placed her hand on mine. "Thank you for being here, Marcus. I should have been here earlier." "No," she said gently. "You came when you needed to. But it didn't feel that way. Not after what I saw." As she rested, I made breakfast, simple toast, eggs, and soft fruits. Daniel stayed in his room the entire time, the door shut, the silence unmistakably heavy. I didn't call him, not yet. Let him sit with his thoughts a little longer. When I brought the food back to Alina, she ate slowly, her movements still delicate. After a few minutes, she set the fork down and sighed. "We need to talk." I sat waiting. "Daniel came to me last night," she whispered. "He apologized." I nodded. "Good." She rubbed her hands together, a gesture she always did when she felt torn. "He's scared, Marcus." "As he should be." She looked up, eyes pleading. "He needs guidance, not punishment." I frowned. "And what do you think I'm doing?" She paused, then smiled sadly. "You're being a father, a good one, but he needs love too, even now, especially now." I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she would say that. Alina had a softness inside her that the world could never beat out, no matter how hard it tried. She continued, "Last night he told me something he didn't want to tell you." I opened my eyes again. "What?" She hesitated. "He said he didn't turn off the water out of carelessness. He turned it off because he thought we couldn't afford to keep it running." My jaw tightened. "He told me that. He said it was because of a bill." She nodded slowly. "There's more." I leaned forward. "What more?" Her voice was barely audible. "He saw the overdue bills on your desk last week. Water, electricity, even the mortgage. He said he didn't want to bother you because he thought we were close to losing the house." I froze. For a moment, everything in the room blurred around me. "What bills?" I whispered. "The ones in the study," she said. My heart began to race. I hadn't seen any such bills, and I never missed payments, not once. My bank accounts were stable. My salary was steady. There had to be a mistake. "Alina, what exactly did he see?" She looked down. "He said he saw red notices, overdue stamps, total amounts he couldn't understand. He said he thought you were hiding it from us." I stood up abruptly, my pulse pounding. I need to see those papers. I walked straight to the study, my footsteps echoing against the floor. The room smelled faintly of paper and dust. I opened the drawer where I kept my documents. There, piled in a stack, were envelopes, red notices, overdue stamps, threat letters, bills in the thousands. My hands trembled as I picked them up. This wasn't possible. I paid everything online. I checked my accounts regularly. There was no way these were real. I looked closer. Some numbers didn't match the previous months. Some formatting looked slightly off. Some dates made no sense, due dates falling before the billing period even ended. Then it hit me. These weren't real. Someone forged them. A cold shiver traveled down my spine. "Elena," I called out, unable to hide the panic in my voice. "These bills, did Daniel tell you who showed them to him?" She blinked, confused. "No, he said he found them on your desk." My mouth went dry. Because I had not seen these papers before. I had not left them on my desk. Someone else must have. Someone who had access to the house. Someone who was here recently. Someone who... My mind landed on one person. Elena's sister. Caroline. She had visited a week ago. A short visit, she called it. She stayed for coffee, talked too sweetly, asked too many questions about our finances, about my work schedule, about how Elena's health had been. I had shrugged it off at the time. Caroline was nosy, but she was family. Except she had always disliked me. She always criticized how much I traveled. Always claimed Elena deserved more stability. Always thought Daniel was too independent and needed a mother's side more. But what would she gain from? I froze again. No. No way. But the pieces were fitting together too perfectly. The party last night. The crowd. Daniel's paranoia about money. The sudden forged bills. The water shut off. Elena left alone. If someone wanted to create a wedge in our family, this was the perfect way. I grabbed the stack and marched back to the living room. "Elena," I said, breathing hard, "these papers, they're fake." She blinked. "What fake?" "Yes," I spread them out on the coffee table. "Look at the dates, the formatting, the numbers, they don't match. These aren't from any real billing office." Daniel appeared in the hallway, eyes wide. "What do you mean fake?" I turned to him slowly. "Daniel, when exactly did you see these?" He swallowed. "A few days ago. They were sitting right on the desk." "Did you open them?" "No, they were already opened. I thought you had checked them." I sat down, mind racing. And who else was in the house that day? He shrugged helplessly. "Just Aunt Caroline. She was here when Mom wasn't feeling well." Elena gasped softly. "But Caroline, she would." "Wouldn't she?" This wasn't just about bills. This was about manipulation. Control. Breaking trust. I looked at Daniel carefully. "What did she say to you when she showed you these bills?" He hesitated, then spoke quietly. She said you were hiding things, that you were drowning in debt, that you were too proud to tell Mom, and that Mom was too sick to handle stress. She told me I needed to become the man of the house for a while." Elena covered her mouth. My breathing grew sharp. "She said all that?" Daniel nodded miserably. "I believed her. I'm sorry, Dad, I didn't know. I thought I was helping." I paced the room, my hands on my hips. This was worse than I imagined. Caroline hadn't just manipulated Daniel, she had weaponized his fears, his insecurities, his desire to be responsible. Elena's voice trembled. "But why? Why would she do that?" I knew why. "Elena," I said gently, "your sister has always believed I was a bad husband. She's always claimed you married the wrong man. She thinks I neglect you because I travel for work." "That's not true," she whispered. "I know, but she doesn't. Daniel sank onto the sofa, guilt written all over his face. So I turned off the water because I thought we couldn't afford it. I thought you were stressed. I thought Mom was too sick to ask for help. I thought, I thought I was saving us. I sat beside him gently this time. Daniel, listen to me. You made mistakes, big ones, but you made them because someone fed you lies. You're not a bad person. You were misled. But I should have checked on Mom, he whispered. Yes, I said honestly. You should have, but we're going to fix this, together. Elena wiped her tears. What do we do about Caroline? I exhaled sharply. First, we protect our home, our family, and then we speak to her firmly. Daniel looked at me with fear. She won't like that. She doesn't need to like it, I replied. She needs to understand her interference ends now. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Daniel stayed with Alina, helping her sit up, guiding her to the bathroom, making sure she was always comfortable. Watching him care for her, truly care, softened something inside me. He wasn't heartless. He wasn't selfish. He was just young, impressionable, and too trusting of the wrong person. By noon, Alina wanted to stand up and walk around a little. Daniel supported her from one side and I held her on the other. She felt lighter than before, too light. The dehydration had drained her strength. As we walked her through the hall, she whispered, I'm so proud of you, Daniel. He blinked, surprised. Mom, how can you be proud? I almost. You made a mistake, she said gently, but today you're making it right. A tear slipped down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away. I felt something shift inside the house, a quiet reconciliation, a healing. But it wasn't finished. Not yet. In the afternoon, I received a text. From Caroline. How is Alina? Need anything? Should I come over? My jaw tightened. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I looked at Alina. Your sister just texted. She grimaced faintly. What should we do? She asked. I'll talk to her, alone. I stepped outside onto the balcony and dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. Marcus, I was just thinking of you. How is Alina? I hope Daniel isn't stressing her out. He always was a handful. Caroline, I cut in sharply. We need to talk now. She went silent for a moment. Is everything all right? No, I said, it's not. What's wrong? You know exactly what's wrong. I heard her breath catch. I don't know what you're implying. You forged bills, I said. You manipulated Daniel. You led him to believe we were drowning in debt. You made him think he had to take charge. Marcus, that's ridiculous. Why would I? Elena almost collapsed because he shut off the water. Silence. A deep, heavy silence. Then she spoke quietly. Too quietly. I didn't mean for that to happen. You didn't think, Caroline. You meddled, and your interference hurt Alina. I only wanted to help, she insisted weakly. I wanted him to step up. He's been so irresponsible lately, and you're always away, I thought. You thought wrong, I said. Your actions nearly put Alina in the hospital. She didn't respond. I continued, voice steady. Do not come to this house. Not today, not tomorrow, not until we talk as a family in person with full honesty. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry. But apologies felt too light compared to the damage. I hung up. When I stepped back inside, Alina looked at me with worried eyes. What did she say? She admitted everything, I said. Daniel's face tightened. I trusted her. We all did, Alina whispered, but your father handled it. We sat together in the living room, a quiet unity forming between us, something fragile but real. Daniel finally spoke, voice thick. Dad, can I ask something? Of course. Can we try to fix things? As a family, I don't want yesterday to be who I am. I looked at him for a long moment, seeing not the careless boy from yesterday, but a young man learning a painful lesson. We will fix things, I said, starting now. Elena smiled, her eyes warm. Together. The rest of the day was healing. Slow, tender, honest. Daniel cooked dinner with me, fumbling awkwardly with every task but trying, really trying. Elena rested nearby, smiling whenever she saw us bickering gently over the stove. Later, we sat around the table quietly eating, the atmosphere soft and peaceful for the first time in days. After dinner, Daniel carried Elena to the sofa and sat on the floor beside her. "Mom," he whispered, "I promise you I'll never ignore you again. I'll be better." She placed a hand on his cheek. "I know you will." That night, as I helped Elena into bed, she held my hand. "Marcus." "Yes. You saved us." I shook my head. "No, we saved each other." She smiled, tired but genuine. "You came home early for a reason." Maybe she was right. Maybe fate had a strange way of guiding us. Later, when the house was quiet and both of them were asleep, I stepped outside for fresh air. The night sky stretched above me, calm and endless. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Tomorrow, we would confront Caroline properly. We would rebuild trust. We would strengthen what almost broke. But tonight my family was safe. And that was enough.